Your homework is to memorize this and write it 15 times.
Welcome to the coolest, hippest half hour of fun on TV. This is Brain Stew with Jennifer Pulley.
You've got to hear it to believe it. This week on Brain Stew, we learn all about sound. How does the USS Boise, a nuclear submarine, use sound to navigate underwater? Next, we jet over to NASA to meet Fred the Head, a guy whose ears are wired for sound. So listen up and stay tuned. You won't want to miss this week's show on sound.
Hey, welcome to Brain Stew. I'm at Gate 5, Pier 23 at the Norfolk Naval Base in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm getting ready to go aboard the USS Boise, a submarine. But before I do, what are we talking about this week? Well, we're talking about sound. Every type of sound is produced by vibration. You know, sounds like a car horn, a radio, a TV, a barking dog, or your mom or dad yelling at you.
Jennifer.
Whatever it is, some part of it is vibrating while it is producing sound. The vibrations from the sound source disturb the air in such a way that sound is produced. These waves travel out in all directions, expanding in a balloon-like fashion from the source of the sound. So sound really depends on three things. Number one, there must be a vibrating source from which sound waves are produced. You know, like that horn, the barking dog, the television or radio, or your mom screaming. Number two, a medium to carry the waves, like a solid, liquid, water, or gas, the air. And number three, you must have a receiver to detect the sound waves, like your ear or a microphone. Well, you know, there is this age-old question concerning the definition of sound. If a tree falls in a forest, far from any sound detector, like an ear or a microphone, does the tree's crash make any noise? Well, the answer is, of course, determined by how you define sound. If you believe sound is the waves that are carried by the air, then the answer is yes. Wherever there are sound waves, there is sound. However, if sound is defined subjectively, for example, as a sensation in the ear, then the answer is no. Sound does not exist if there is no receiver to detect it. Okay, so now that you've heard what I've said about sound, let's go aboard the USS Boise and talk to a friend of mine, Sam Pennington. He's going to tell us all about what a sub has to do with sound. All aboard?
Going down the USS Boise. All right.
Hey, I am here with Sam Pennington. He is a sonar technician aboard the USS Boise. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm
today?
great. Brain Stew's excited to be here.
Really? So am I.
Yeah, I know. You're going to tell us lots of interesting information, I hope.
Sure do.
Okay,
Hope
now
so.
my first question is, what type of naval vessel is the USS Boise? Now, I'm not talking naval like a belly button.
We're on one of the newest fast attack submarines, nuclear powered, that the Navy owns.
Wow. We got connections to be on this thing.
Took a lot of strings to pull to get you on board.
Good.
How big is the submarine?
The ship is about 330 feet long. That's a lot smaller than most surface craft. And we have about 140 people on board at all times.
Wow. And
So we're usually pretty crowded.
I can imagine. They're going to get a little claustrophobic.
At certain points, we have 15 or 16 people in sonar.
In that little room over there?
In that little room.
We're going to see that in a second. Now, Sam, when we talk about submarines, we're talking about a vessel with no windows.
How do you steer a submarine with no windows?
We have sonar, which is sound navigation and ranging.
That's what sonar stands for?
Sonar stands for sound navigation and ranging.
Okay.
Now what we do is we listen to the area around us, kind of like we listen with our ears.
Sure.
Based on what we hear, if we hear noise, we don't steer in that direction. We steer away from it to move around.
So you're relying completely on sound, not your
Completely.
eyes.
What we hear, we base on where we go.
Now, how do you steer a sub? I mean, is there, you always think of those big old periscopes that come down, everybody looks out of the periscopes. Is that the only way that you steer a sub?
No, actually, we only use the periscopes when we're close to the surface.
Can you show me a periscope?
Sure.
All right.
This is one of our periscopes.
Oh, cool.
And if you'd like, you can actually look out the periscope and see your car.
You're kidding me.
No. You can change the magnification,
Yeah.
just
and
like
this
binoculars.
thing rotates, or does
it
it
sure does.
You gotta be really strong. Oh, wow. Oh, this is really cool. You gotta be really strong to turn it, though. Ugh. So this is only then to see what's on the surface of the water.
That's correct. When we are at periscope depth, which is 60 feet or less, or on the surface, we're looking at the periscopes. Other than that, we're relying totally upon what we hear in the water.
Okay, now what happens when you go down and you can't see out of the periscopes anymore? Who's steering the ship?
The
How are
officer,
they doing
the officer of the deck is actually in charge of the ship,
Okay.
and the steerage. He is about where you're standing,
Okay.
right? Sonar hears a contact, a merchant, a warship, a submarine, right? Reports it, we pass them out, and the officer of the deck then determines where to turn the ship. The steering wheels are a lot the same as an airplane, right? They can go left, right, or up, down.
All right, so this is where who would sit here again?
The helmsman and the planesman,
Okay.
they're in charge of the bow planes, the stern planes, and the rudder. The diving officer, who would sit here, would tell us where to turn the ship or what depth to go to. He would also tell the chief of the watch how much water to bring on board to make the boat sink.
Wait a minute. You're bringing water on board a
We sure
submarine?
did.
No, you're kidding me.
We have to. The submarine floats because of natural buoyancy,
Sure.
like soap. Well, we have to, if you held the soap down, it would go underwater.
Yeah, but
if you moved your hand, it would pop back up.
Exactly.
So for us to do that, with our propulsion system, we can drive ourselves down.
Yeah, you just push this thing forward and it goes down.
But as soon as we let go, we'd pop back up. So we have tanks that we
On board.
that we flood with water. And based on how much water we bring in to the boat, we can maintain a depth without having to be pushed down the whole time.
Ah. So the water goes on board and it sinks the ship, is it?
It sinks the ship.
Okay, and then when you want to come up, I guess you bail the water out.
If we could not pump the water out or blow it out with high pressure air, we would stay down below.
Now, Sam, from the ship's control panel, you're shipping me over here. Oh,
To sonar. That's correct. I'm
All
shipping
right.
you to sonar.
Okay.
We always have to knock before we go in because it's so small. There's usually 16 people in here. So somebody could be leaning against it. This is sonar.
16 people in here?
There have been 16 people in here at a time when we're tracking submarines. All this gear is basically a whole lot of ears.
We talked about the definition of sound.
Right.
Sound is a vibrating source that sends out sound waves, and then a receiver receives it like an ear
That's
and hears it. How does that relate to all this equipment here?
Well, as you were talking, you were sending out a sound wave,
Sure.
and my ears were receiving it. This is the same principle. All right? Basically, we have hydrophones throughout the whole boat, the same as your telephone. You have one on each end. You can speak and you can hear.
Okay.
All right. Our hydrophones, through the equipment, show you what they call a demonstrace, or a digital representation of sound.
Okay.
All it's doing is showing you that there's noise on a certain bearing in the water. The operators report to me, the sonar supervisor, hey Soup, I've got a demonstrace. By listening to it, it would be the same as if we were listening to each other talk. Now, what we do is through other classified areas, we can analyze that and determine how fast they're going through the water,
Okay.
how far away they are, and where they're going, their course, their speed, their range.
No, all those three things. You don't even see them,
Nope, don't see them.
just by hearing them.
All we're doing is listening to them.
That's so cool.
The same as if you take your car to the tune-up shop
Okay.
and you pop the hood.
Yep.
That's broadband noise. If you walked across the garage, you'd say it's over there. That's what our broadband receivers are doing.
So it's just a mishmash of all different kinds of sounds then.
Right.
Okay.
Our narrowband, which breaks it down to core, speed, range, exactly whether it's a merchant, a submarine, a warship.
Sure, you
or
gotta
even
find out what it is.
Sometimes an airplane.
You're kidding me.
We can even hear airplanes fly over sometimes,
Even if you're way down underneath.
if they're close enough.
That's some pretty good ears.
Exactly. They're a lot better than our ears, and that's why we depend on them.
Okay, so
All
the
right?
narrow band just breaks it down more, so then you can determine what it is,
Yep.
how far away it is, okay, and
The type.
The
what
type
it
of
is.
what it
Whether
is,
it's
okay.
a submarine,
Okay.
what type of submarine. Now, if you were actually manning this console underway, you'd have your headphones on.
okay.
You'd be searching around. Now, we say that meaning that your cursor, which is right now down here,
I see it.
all right, would be listening to each bearing in the ocean. The same as if you were turning in a circle, trying to listen all the way around you out in the real world. Now, if you saw a demonstrate, you would say,
I'm hearing those little, right there, those little white blips. I hear that.
yep,
I don't know what it is, but
it's actually a buoy out in the water in front of us.
that's what I'm hearing.
That's exactly what you're hearing.
That's it.
Now, we basically classify noise in two subcategories. Passive, which is listening.
Okay.
If we were sitting in class, just going, the teacher is talking.
I'm never boring now.
Right. We would be sitting there passively.
Yeah.
If we were talking, we'd be actively
So
participating.
doing something, actively
Right.
doing something. Now,
Submarines need to be very quiet. So usually
you're passive.
we're passive. There you go.
But what about, you always hear that, you know, the ping. You always hear about submarines sending out a ping. So that's not passive.
That's active. We're
Okay.
making noise now. By us making noise, other people would hear us.
So you don't want to go active a lot.
Not often.
Okay.
We're usually 99% of the time we're passive. We're there and nobody else knows we're there.
Very quiet. Okay. Sam, does everything on the ship have the USS Boise on it?
Not everything, but we're pretty proud of our boat.
Well, you should be. We really appreciate the tour of the submarine and of the sonar room.
Well, thanks. We were pretty excited to have Brain Stew on board with us. We
Great.
appreciate you coming.
Well, thanks a lot.
All right,
Right?
carry on.
Okay. Well, all that talk about subs made me want to go get a submarine sandwich. I guess they're getting tired of my jokes around here. Listen, up next, we're going to go talk to a friend of mine. He's an ear doctor, and he's going to tell us all about the inside of your ear and how that pertains to sound. I'll see you in a minute.
So do you see anything, Doc? Oh, are we rolling? Oh, hey, I'm here with my friend, Dr. Scott Moran. He's an ear, nose, and throat specialist. How you doing, Doc?
I'm doing pretty good.
Do you see anything?
No, not a whole lot.
Shouldn't have asked. Now, what tool are you using here?
This is called an otoscope. O-T-O is what the medical terminology for ear. So when you look at an otoscope, it's a scope to look at an ear.
Okay, and what do you see with it?
Well, what it does basically, it illuminates the inside of the ear, so you
Okay.
can see the eardrum and you can see the ear canal, and if you're real lucky, you can see a little through the eardrum and see the bones on the inside of the eardrum which transmit the sounds.
Bones inside?
Little T-bones, smallest bones in the human body.
Now, Doc, show me what you saw inside my ear.
Here's the outside of an ear, and it's kind of cut away. And here's the ear canal, which is basically a tube that goes down, and here's the eardrum right here. We've kind of cut away the eardrum there so that you're seeing it in cross section.
Okay.
When you look straight on the eardrum, it looks a lot like this. And it has a membrane, you can see the light reflecting, and that's an ear bone. And on the inside of the eardrum, you can see a little shadow here, that's another ear bone.
Now, what does that eardrum actually do then? How does that help us hear?
The eardrum vibrates. When sound travels through air, it sends the particles within the air vibrating, and it makes the eardrum move. And when the eardrum moves, it transmits that movement to the ear bones, which then resonate. And their resonance is transmitted through what we call the stirrup or stapes, which is the smallest little bone that we talked about in the human body, that then vibrates the inner ear.
And then it sends the sound to, I guess, the brain, right?
Sends the sound into the inner ear, which then is like the retina in the eye. It transmits the vibration into a nerve signal, which is then transmitted to the brain.
Doctor, I want to thank you for letting us come in here and learn some more about our ear and sound.
Oh, it was very nice to have Brain Stew in my office.
We appreciate it. Thanks again.
Take care.
From submarines to an ear doctor to NASA Langley Research Center. I'm here with my friend Sharon. How are you, Sharon?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Tell me about sound.
It's really just a change in pressure in the air that our ear can interpret.
Okay, now, we can hear sound.
Yes.
Can you show me? Can we see sound?
We can see sound
You're
right
kidding.
here. What I have is a keyboard hooked up through a cable to an oscilloscope. It will make a plot of the pressure changes, pressure as a function of time.
Okay.
So if I play a note on the board, you see the changes in pressure that we hear as the note A.
Yeah.
Look at the difference between this A and a higher A. You see the difference?
Yeah, the waves are a lot closer together.
Right. The wavelength changes with frequency.
Okay.
Now, the amplitude,
Which is,
the height of the wave,
Okay.
will change with loudness. If I made it softer, the waves would get smaller. And if I made it louder, the waves would get bigger.
now if you play a really, really low note, the waves get stretched out.
That's
really
right.
long. Okay.
Now, what you're hearing here is a flute, which is a very pure tone. Whereas if I put it on organ, look at the difference. You see?
Now why does it do that?
Well, an organ has a fundamental tone and then lots of overtones, which make all that hash in the signal.
But it's a lot of things mixed in together is what you're saying. Whereas
That's right.
a flute is just one single sound or
You want
tone.
to see a drum?
That is cool. I mean, the amplitude is so much, it's off the screen.
That's right.
Because the noise is so loud. Wow, that is great. So that's actually sound picture. So that shows us how we can see sound.
That's right.
Those were just very pure sounds, okay? What about sounds in a room? Things echoing.
Right, we can't see sounds in the room, but we can see how the sounds work by looking at how water waves work.
Oh, kind of like on a puddle or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a wave table here.
Okay.
We can make waves in the water and see what they look like on the screen.
Okay, so all this is basically a circular container with water in it.
That's all it is.
Okay.
You can see how sound would work in a circular room by dropping drops of water. And I think you can see that it all focuses back to the center.
Sure, now, when you do that, it goes out to the sides and it looks like it's coming back in. Is that what it's doing?
The round waves hit the round wall all at the same time, and they bounce back and focus on a spot right in the center.
But if you drop it
If
over
I
here,
drop it over here, it'll focus on the other side.
How does sound travel in a square room?
It doesn't focus the same way.
Okay.
In a square room, the waves are round and they go out and they hit the walls at different times.
Sure, because it's square.
And
Okay.
so when they focus back, you'll see a much more irregular pattern. You see, it's just kind of all
they're
square.
just kind of like, they're not coming back into a focal point.
The other problem that we have is if you sit in a church and you happen to sit behind the beams or the column,
Exactly.
you can't hear anything because the waves will have a zone of silence. Maybe you can see. There's,
Right here.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to get
No
any.
sound will reach there because this column is in the way. And it's a really difficult problem to design a nice hall for acoustics, like for the symphony to play in.
Now, when you say acoustics, what's the definition of acoustics?
Sound.
Okay, that's all it is. Sound and
It's the
acoustics.
study of sound.
Seatbelt fastened. All right, we're getting ready to take off. I tell you, we go on some wacky brain stew adventures, don't we? I'm just kidding. We're not jetting off anywhere. Brenda, where are we?
Well, you're in the NASA Interior Noise Simulator.
Looks just like a jet.
It is a jet. We got the seats out of a 757 and the trim from a 737.
Wow. And the people from?
Oh, they're NASA Langley people. They're just warm bodies we keep in here.
Now, this guy here doesn't look like a warm body.
No, he's a pretty cool body. He has microphones in his ears,
Okay.
and we take him up on real airplanes and we record the noise just like you would hear it with your two ears.
And I guess that's why he's got a tape recorder attached to it.
Right.
Okay. And you have a name for this guy, right?
Well, he's commonly called Fred. Fred the Head.
Fred the Head. Well, that's what he looks like. Now, so you take him up in a real airplane and you record the noise.
Right.
Okay, and then how do you use that?
Well, we take it back down to Earth,
Okay.
and I put it on a computer and play around with it. And then we can play it back to subjects, like these kind of folk here.
Okay.
Who, in our test, they'd be wearing headphones.
Like
Would
these?
you like to put your headphones on, people?
Shall we?
Those who have headphones. And we play them back the noises. The noises recorded through Fred
Okay.
sound very realistic when they're played back over headphones, so you really think you're up there.
Why wouldn't people just go up in an airplane then? I mean, why are you trying to test, what are you testing sound for?
Well, we want to know how people react to sound. It's very expensive to actually take people up in an aeroplane, so we bring them down here. Also, it means we can take the sounds we record and we can play around with them and predict what might happen with a future aircraft. And we can play them back to our subjects, and the subjects can say, yeah, that was good, that was bad.
Can you play some sounds for us that you have recorded?
The first one we're going to play is the interior of a jet aircraft.
Of a jet aircraft. All right, ready for takeoff?
This is cruise.
Oh, cruise. Okay, we're cruising. Sorry. Lean. All right, so Brenda, that was that sounded kind of loud to me.
You think that's loud? Wait for this next one. This one is from inside a commuter plane.
All right, I'm ready. That's a lot louder.
Much louder.
Oh, so that's a big difference between those two sounds. So I guess people prefer to ride in a jet than a prop plane?
Right.
How can you change sound inside of an airplane?
Well, there's all sorts of possible ways of doing it. You can do what they call anti-noise. You can play back another sound that cancels out the first sound. You can change the engines, make them quieter. All sorts of possibilities.
And all that research is done right here at NASA.
Absolutely.
We're getting ready to land, so I'm going to take a seat. Stick around, we got a really neat sound experiment coming up.
I'm going to show you how frequency affects the pitch of sound. Here's what you'll need. Some water, 6 glass bottles about the same size. Here they are. And a metal spoon. Thanks. Here's what you do. Fill the bottles with different amounts of water, like I already did. Gently tap each bottle with the metal spoon. Did you hear the difference in pitch? The bottle with the most amount of water had the lowest pitch. Remember the bottle with the least amount of water? Well, it had the highest pitch. Let me tell you why. Sounds are made by vibrating objects. The number of times the object vibrates or moves back and forth is called the frequency of the sound. As the frequency increases, the pitch of the sound gets higher. Tapping on the bottle causes the bottle and its contents to vibrate. As the height of the water column increases, the pitch of the sound gets lower.
Do you remember my friend Fred here? Well, Fred and I are off on another adventure on Brain Stew. I'm gonna buckle up, get all settled. Where are we going, Fred? 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 Enough about you, Fred. We're off. But don't worry, I won't be gone long. I'll be back next week for Brain Stew. Hope to see you there. Everything on this ship have the USS Boise on it?
Not everything.
No.
It was nice to have Brain Stew aboard.
Oh,
though.
thanks. Actually, you know.
My bad. All right.
Sam, does everything on the ship have the USS?
I forget.
Well, I picked up a book. Did you? Thank you so much. Guys, from submarines to an ear doctor. Now I'm at NASA Langley. No, enough with you, Fred. We're going off. Enough with you, Fred.
Here's what you do. Fill the